Hello, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world today. My name is Stephen Morris. I'm the banking editor of the Financial Times, and welcome to this webinar about improving operational efficiency in corporate and investment banking, during which we will discuss ways for COOs to increase productivity, cut costs, and boost competitiveness. We are sponsored today by Williams Lea, which is a business processing outsourcing specialist for financial professional services and legal firms. Now, I don't need to remind everyone watching today that the industry faces unprecedented operational challenges. Investment banks are having to implement innovative technologies while fending off new and nimble big and fintech competitors, win new clients, maximize revenues, adjust to complicated new regulations, manage rising cyber threats, and generally keep the show on the road during a global pandemic and major economic disruption. So I don't envy my three panelists here today. Chief operating officers and their colleagues are on that front line and under intense pressure to find better and more cost-effective ways of running core functions like sales, marketing, IT, administration, finance, and HR, ideally for the same money or even less. They're also having to find new efficiencies and cost savings in support services like publishing, design, management information, and admin services. In many cases, the solutions will remain in-house, but I think this year, the COVID-driven remote working experiment has encouraged a move to more outsourcing operations, or at least an openness to them that may not have been considered in the past. Now, financial institutions are recognizing that outsourcing certain functions can be conducted more securely, cheaply, and at scale via the cloud and in non-city center office locations. So, we'll move into the webinar, which will look at how banks are going to ensure the smooth running of their operation in today's volatile and risky commercial environment. And to discuss these issues, I am joined by three great panelists in this webinar. Two of them are chief operating officers from big banks, as well as one of the main outsourcers who service them. So I would like to introduce Clare Hart, who is chief executive of Williams Lea, our sponsor today. Poggi, Managing Director and COO of Specialist M&A Advisor, Harris Williams. And finally, David Sliney, COO of Wealth Manager and Investment Bank, Stifel. So, first a reminder to our virtual audience, a quick reminder that you can ask questions at any time via the box on your screen, and I will do my best to ask as many as I can throughout the session, and hopefully we'll have time for a short Q&A at the end. And the webinar will be available to view on demand immediately after the live show and for a while after. And if you have any thoughts you want to share on social media, please use the hashtag #FTDigitalDialogues, which is quite long, but try and remember #FTDigitalDialogues. Now I'm going to hand over to our sponsor today, Clare, for a few words of introduction from her.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for all the attendees who are joining our conference. For those of you who don't know, Williams Lea is an outsourced services firm. We concentrate on the banking, legal, and professional services industry, and we provide skilled administrative support services around secretarial support, financial back office, marketing and sales back office, and document processing, as well as presentation and creative services. So that's a little bit of background on our business. About 40% of our business is from the banking community, 40% from legal, and 20 from professional services.
Thank you, Clare. So I would like to start the event with a general question for our audience about the main challenges and operational difficulties facing today's corporate and investment banks, which, as I said in my introduction, is everything from digital transformation, type of competition, cybersecurity, and new financial regulations. So I'm going to ask a question, a poll, and you can all vote on it via your screens, and then we will see the results. So the question is, which one of the four operational challenges listed on your screens is the most difficult for your organization to manage? Number one is digital transformation. 2, hiring and retaining talent. 3, combating cybercrime. And 4, the COVID-19 pandemic and the related economic disruption. So whilst we give you a minute or so to vote, I'm going to go to Clare for her thoughts as we wait for the results to come in. So in your experience, what are the biggest operational issues your clients require assistance with?
I think the two that we come across most are definitely related to digital transformation, hiring, and retaining talent. And digital transformation is what every company in the world is going through. The expectation is whatever you're doing manually, even whatever you're doing through systems today, companies are looking at ways to drive operational efficiency through technology, whether that's automation, whether it's machine learning, whatever it happens to be, to ensure that productivity gains, efficiency, and then accuracy. Accuracy is a big part of what digital transformation can bring, accuracy and turnaround time. The other piece is hiring and retaining talent, and I suspect we'll talk a bit about that today in the context of there is a bit of a war for talent going on in the US. There are two dynamics that are affecting the way people are working. That is the context of we worked from home for the last year. Can we continue to work from home at least part of the time? So there's the work environment question. And then there are changes in the dynamics in the wages, especially when it comes to hourly workers, where because the minimum wage has increased, so too has the wage at all hourly worker jobs, or many hourly worker jobs. So those are two areas where when we respond to client RFIs or RFPs, they're asking us, what are you doing about digital? How are you turning manual processes and automating them? And they're also asking us a lot about our talent, which is what is a key dimension of what Williams Lea brings: professional, experienced, and tech savvy employees to bring to bear on a lot of the administrative support services that I described earlier. We hear more about those two items. I think the last two are definitely, and in the U.S., we just, we're going through the issue we have here on the East Coast with cybercrime and the ransomware on the major pipeline on the East Coast. So that's something that everyone's got in the back of their mind. Most of our buyers are not focused on that at the moment. There are people in their organizations, head of security, that are. And then, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic we're all living, and what is that economic disruption? What is it going to mean longer term? And I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more today as we start with the return to office. So they're all items that are high on the radar. The first two are the two that we hear our clients talking about most.
Well, Claire, it appears our audience agree because the results of the poll were 64% digital transformation as the biggest operational challenge. Hiring and retaining talent, your second one, was 25%. Combating cybercrime, 0%. So everyone's fine on that front. And 9% for the COVID-19 pandemic and related economic disruption. So I just want to bring in one of our investment bankers on the panel today, Paul from Harris Williams, which specializes in M&A advisory services. For you, what are the main operational challenges you face in this modern, coronavirus world? What might be most useful to you in future for terms of outsourcing services?
Well, the biggest challenges we face are, I think Claire alluded to, getting back to the office, getting back together, enhancing the ability of our bankers to collaborate as they work together to deliver client service. Those are some of our challenges. Certainly, I agree with some of the poll results. Digital transformation and leveraging technology to enable our bankers to work together more seamlessly on behalf of their clients is important. We are focused on combating cybercrime and enhancing our cybersecurity. And that's an area where we've both insourced expertise for that and leveraged out our parent company and also outsourced companies. Look, we're trying to allocate expertise where it ought to be allocated. We want our investment bankers to be focused on providing the best quality M&A advice to our clients. Excuse me. And we want our business operations folks focused on providing as much leverage as possible to our bankers in pursuit of that execution excellence. So where we need expertise, we'll outsource, and where we think that the expertise is better served insourced, that's what we'll do.
Yeah. And has your attitude to it changed, would you say, over the past year? There are certain things that you think could be better done remotely or outside of the company as a result of the change in work and practices we've all been forced into?
Stephen, I'm not sure that our attitude has changed really. or has been changed by our experience dealing with the pandemic. I think we were well positioned to work from home or work remotely already. We had kind of a seamless transition thanks to our in-house expertise and our outstanding technology department. I think our philosophy has always been, let's have people working at the highest and best use of their time. And it's our responsibility as business operations folks to ensure that what we're doing enables the client-facing people to do that.
Yeah, I agree. So finally, David, the COO of Stifel. So what are your most pressing challenges in light of the poll results and your experience, not only in the last year, but before that?
Well, I'll tell you this, Stephen. First of all, good morning, and thanks for having me on the panel. With respect to all these questions are really relevant, okay? Organizations who support the front line are dealing with all of them, including cyber. I was a little surprised by the results of the survey. But the one that we're touching most at Stifel is the digital transformation topic, like Clare and Paul both said. Our story might be a little bit different because Stifel is really a growth story. We've added companies through acquisitions, we've added talent, we've added new business lines. And so as we've grown and evolved, every component of our business is asking for more digital engagement. So as an infrastructure provider, we're seeing our business partners really asking for more. And so every component of our business is going through this transformation, and it's happening at warp speed. Yeah,
I agree. But I was shocked by the combating cybercrime result. Perhaps that came under the digital transformation, tent in some people's minds. But let's just hope everyone hasn't cursed themselves, at least in that regard. So I'd like to move on to our second topic, something that we've been writing a lot about at the FT lately because of a number of sort of breaking news stories that certainly our readers have taken a lot of interest in. And that is, the workload of juniors, be they junior investment bankers in M&A analysts, lawyers, the whole across the professional services, legal, financial services gamut. So obviously COVID has worsened this for some people in that it's blurred the lines between work and home, especially in a sort of trading and deal making boom, which obviously affects everybody, including journalists, I'll point out. So I'm just wondering whether this record activity, seen during the pandemic, has that led to some institutions to think that outsourcing might be the answer to reducing the burden on some of these younger employees, particularly on sort of the non-creative tasks, on the more administrative side? And David, I'd like to come to you first again on this.
Sure. First of all, you have to recognize the incredible work the young junior analysts and bankers have done in the last year. Imagine starting your career and you're just getting started, and now you're being forced home, and you're then dealing with record volume while you're trying to learn. So just incredible what the younger staff did last year. With respect to outsourcing, we don't even like to use that term. We like to call it co-sourcing. So when we're going to work with a partner, whether it's Clare's or another competitor, we want to work really closely with them. And then we're always trying to figure out, is there a way to make a technology investment that can help the juniors or any component of our business? And so that's what we've done. When we've co-sourced, we've tried to bring capability into our platforms. I think later today we'll talk about what we've done with Salesforce, and that has made us more efficient and given back time to bankers like we're talking now.
Yeah. And Paul, M&A is famously hard driving and competitive field. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, is outsourcing a way to free up your younger staff, especially for more creative tasks?
I think for us, so much of the work we do is customized and tailored for our clients. So we're judicious about outsourcing. Certainly, we do leverage outsourced resources where appropriate. For example, where we're dealing with documents that can be templatized, can have standard data sets, where we can have outsourced resources do some preliminary basic research. I think I mentioned earlier, Stephen, when we were chatting the other day, there are certain content pieces that we produce that have some regularity to them, and we've managed to leverage outsourcing for those, such that what used to take maybe 10 hours, I'm making up a number of junior bankers' time, can now take 2 hours or an hour and a half. So we are judicious about it. It's certainly that issue of the workload and the stresses on our junior bankers has always been top of mind for us. And to David's earlier point, we are in growth mode. We're growing and constantly thinking about how to facilitate and enable that growth. One thing that that we did a couple of years ago, I think we also talked about this the other day, is really took a much more intentional view of what we then called our administrative colleagues. Now we've transformed that group of colleagues into a much more leverage providing aspect of our staffing. So our operating support staff are now embedded in our deal teams. They have very focused areas of concentration and developing expertise, and they're in a position now to provide far more leverage to our junior bankers and senior bankers throughout all aspects of our work, be it origination or execution, than ever before.
Yeah. And Claire, I mean, what's your perspective from the other side, talking to a wide range of clients and customers? What are they asking for you to help support, younger or perhaps burnt out staff?
I think a lot of it goes to what Paul said earlier. Bankers want to do banking. And so what we tend to do for the banks, junior bankers especially, because they end up with the bulk of this work, we do presentations and creative, we do business information services, and we do administrative support for them and for others within some of the largest banks in the world and medium-sized banks as well as private equity. So think about the millions of PowerPoint presentations that get put together every year as part of pitch books. We're putting together millions of slides for these bankers. That means that the banker doesn't have to stay up till 2 a.m. doing the work. They can send the request to us, the iteration of the presentation to us. We're on a 24/7 clock. We have round-the-clock service between our onshore centers in the U.S., the U.K., and then our offshore centers in India. So presentations and creative is probably the bulk of the work that gets offloaded from the junior bankers to Williams Lea, but also business information services. So you have to look up information about this company or that competitor to be prepared for the pitch, that sort of work. And then administrative support, just the basic secretarial support, rather than the junior bankers having to do that work. Yeah.
Having to do their own arrangements. Okay. Now another hot topic this year, we were chatting a little bit about this in the green room before we started, is about offices. And perhaps cutting office space in the future. We've seen a lot of promises from various bankers and other firms to cut real estate costs, especially in city centres. Just one example, when I spoke to the CEO of HSBC late April, he said that they were looking at a 40% reduction in annual head office expenses. Now, this is a global lender with 230,000 plus staff in around 60 countries. So for them, that could represent a really substantial saving. And I just wondered, Claire, is there what is your sense, that outsourcers can play a role in this?
Absolutely. I think one of the things for all of us to keep in mind is there's been so much work done on the office of the future. We hear everything about the office of the future, the technology of the future. And the Office of the Future, Williams Lea has co-sponsored a program with Unwork, a UK-based global company, about what is the future of the office for banking, for law firms, for professional services. McKinsey and all the consulting firms have done an amazing amount of work in this area. And there's little doubt in my mind that the profile of the office is going to change. And there's a view that if the work that you're doing today in a home environment, you don't need to do that in the office. What the office becomes is a collaboration space, a place to bring clients, a place to bring employees to get together. It could be small meetings. So a lot of companies are looking at sort of cafe style environments where people can have 3 and 4 person meetings. So I think what's going to happen is the office is going to change. Yes, there will be companies that take advantage of the opportunity to shrink their office footprint around the globe. We're hearing that all over the place. We can read about that in the FT and other papers. That is going to happen, but it's also the footprint is going to change. So, and I think outsourcing will be a part of assisting that, because the idea of having administrative support in the most expensive real estate in the world, major cities across the globe, people are rethinking that. They want to use that space for client and for critical partner and employee meetings.
And Paul, what's your kind of thoughts and your company's approach to this? I mean, are you looking to cut anything from your real estate bill?
Well, Claire mentioned something that I think is more the focus of our thinking, which is how to best use the space that we have and evolve the use of the space that we have in a way that's consistent with the way people want to work and the evolution of the way people want to work. But no, we're not contemplating shrinking our overall footprint, just kind of rethinking the interior of the footprint, if you will. And as we roll back to work, for example, we're rolling back to work in San Francisco in a brand new office. We're rolling back to work in London in a very new office. So that's really more of our philosophy, is how to best use the space that we have, but not to shrink our overall footprint, we don't think.
Yeah. I think that's a debate that pretty much every company that has an office in the world is going through at the moment, including the Financial Times. Now, I'd just like to bring David back in here. Can you tell, you're a fast-growing company, as you mentioned before. What is your attitude to kind of this? I mean, is this a chance to try and reduce some of your overheads, your office costs, or are you sort of more dedicated to coming back to the office kind of full time and not looking at that?
Yeah, Stephen, we want to come back to the office, and for us, it's less about a cost save or efficiency, but we want to come back in. We want to be with our new partners. We've done 7 or 8 acquisitions in the last 5 years. So the people from Canada want to come into New York and talk about products and services that they have, and you kind of lose it in Zoom. But if you can be in a conference room and bring your junior teams in and talk and kind of pitch each other, we see that happening all the time. Then actually breaking out and working on something, working on a pitch or a project together in the office like we've always done. So we'll keep growing, and real estate's it's going to change, like Claire said, a little bit how it works, but we want to come back in the office and start being together in person.
Yeah, I agree. I've started going out and meeting contact sources, doing interviews in person, limited way we can in London, and it has been very refreshing. After the best part of 3 to 4 months not being allowed to do that. So getting back into the details again on our next topic, is improving core functions. So I'd like to know in which core areas. Now we're talking here about sales, marketing, administration, finance, compliance, risk management, HR, IT. They're all very familiar topics to everyone here. Where are CEOs and other executives under the most pressure to improve efficiency and reduce costs? And how, are they meeting the demands placed on them in this changing world? Paul, you mentioned before you've made some changes to the structure of your administrative support functions. What other core areas are you looking to improve efficiency and reduce costs?
Well, across the board, really, Stephen, we're always looking for ways to improve the ability of our bankers to work efficiently. And so we are focusing on ways to do that involve technology. We're looking at ways to do that involve, again, judiciously and where appropriate, outsourcing. And we're looking at ways to do that to enhance the ability of bankers to collaborate, wherever they might be. Again, like David mentioned and spoke so eloquently about, we're champing at the bit to be in the office together, collaborating in person, sharing ideas, and supporting, in particular, our newer and more junior bankers, who, to his point, some of them haven't been really in the office. That's why I'm at home right now, because a first-year analyst is occupying my office so that he can, integrate with his team and learn as an apprentice from senior folks. Areas that we're focused on in terms of enhancement include, as I mentioned, some outsourcing, some ability to help folks with some of the more rote work that can comprise some of the job. I think that's my answer. I'm sticking to it.
And Claire, where do you see your customers coming to you saying, look, I feel we could be doing more efficient in this area, or I'm under pressure to reduce costs, as we said, sales, marketing, administration, finance, risk management. What kind of, what are you seeing across the broad spectrum of companies you deal with?
I think one of the key factors is one of the key drivers at a macro level is the earnings that were released for 2020. I mean, everyone had good earnings, the costs that were taken out of the business. Now companies are going to be looking at the 2021 earnings and the overhead costs and saying, how can we match that? Well, of course, it's unlikely they'll match it, but they're going to look at every area more closely in the context of, do we need to carry these costs? And I think that's one of the reasons real estate is on the list. I've had COOs say to me, look, after people and real estate, bit of technology, the next thing that we spend the most money on is information. And look, you're in the information industry. I used to be in the information industry, but we have worked with banks on helping them save money on the procurement of information. We have a service we call Pubs and Subs that allows us to help our clients manage, first of all, their subscriptions, all their subscriptions. So when employees come and go, you're keeping your records up to date. So you're not spending money on employees who have left the business. And then the second part of that is negotiating those deals. And our people, that's all they do, that are dedicated to Pubs and Subs. We have one large bank where we've saved them between $1 million and $4 million a year for the last 9 years. So that's another area that people are looking at. Outsourcing, marketing and creative. We're not doing marketing strategy. That is left with the bank, the CMO and the senior marketers or the senior marketing executives in law firms or professional services. But the administrative side of that, and when I say administrative, it's keeping the websites fresh. Even things like executive bios that sound like, well, of course, that's easy, but someone's got to do it. Let someone else do it. Invitations to executive meetings, signings when we go back to meetings, the signage that directs people to the right place in the building, those sorts of things, websites. And then, of course, the creative side of presentations to ensure the best looking pitch books, and over time, those pitch books being dynamic. So I think people are looking at the experts. They're saying, I want to practice law. I want to practice banking. I want to work with my clients. I don't want to do that work. And that's where we come in.
Yeah. Fascinating. I hope those subs and pubs include the FT and that we drive a hard bargain on our end. So David, what areas do you feel sort of, most pressed to improve efficiency and cut costs?
Yeah, let me twist it if I can a little bit, Stephen, and say it this way. So there's layers of this story, okay? On our core infrastructure, so the things that almost 9,000 associates rely on every day, movement to the cloud, big data, new ways of computing, security, okay? All of that core infrastructure is changing really quickly. People are moving, firms like ours are moving from on-prem and different ways of supporting that technology, moving to cloud services, okay? So core is changing really quickly. When you move into our business lines, okay, and you talk to leaders in investment banking, sales and trading, research, those areas are working with firms like Clare's and doing those websites. We just did this in January this year, launched a whole new institutional group website. And it was really a better product to market quicker that we could do in-house. And so that was an example. The next layer, our business line saying, we'll partner with someone and build out a new experience. And it's just a better win story.
Yeah. And is that kind of a big leap for you to have to take, having done presumably a lot more of this in-house and on-premises, in the decades leading up to that and leading up to those decisions?
The benefits of doing it, Stephen, are so obvious you can't not do it. So it's just it's amazing what firms can do now that being in-house was an anchor, and now you can get much further faster.
Yeah, exactly. You're just seeing such rapid advances. I want to bring in a couple of audience questions now, which I think are quite good at getting to the heart of the issue. One asks, are there services or capabilities that would be a good fit for outsourcing, but where it is hard to find external partners for, i.e., are there any areas that Clare should move into? Paul, can you think of any that spring to mind?
Well, there are certainly services and capabilities that are a good fit for outsourcing, and we've discussed some of them. I mean, we have partners that help us manage our information, market information resources, and help us manage, the tendency to have redundancy in that area, that sort of thing. So there are certainly outsourcing models that work in partnership with insourcing that work. To the extent that there are some that are hard to find, I'm not sure that we've felt that they're hard to find. Sometimes it's hard to find good ones, as we continue to leverage the cloud, for example, in certain ways. But I'm not sure they're hard to find. I can't think of a new market area, Claire, for you to break into.
And David, are there any things that you wish there were things outsourced to help you with that you can't quite find at the moment?
Well, here's what I'll say. I'll give myself a little homework after the webinar. But I think that if you walk around your business and look at things and can say, we're doing this the same way today that we've been doing it for a long time, I got a hunch that Claire can do that potentially better for the organization. So I'll have to follow up and see. But that if you're doing it the same way, chances are someone's trying to do that better.
Yeah. Now, Claire, are there any areas you've identified already that you've heard requests from, and you'll think, oh well, that's something to do?
I think the area that we're finding a lot of interest is data and analytics, and it's really the internal data within the bank, within the law firm, within the professional services firms, and this has been especially true while people are working at home. Around administrative tasks, what are people doing? And it's not that we want Big Brother watching, but we do want to make sure we've got people utilized. And so Williams Lea has a workflow, data warehouse, and analytics platform called Engage. It's our digital client platform. And when we do work for clients, everything is recorded in Engage, so that at the end of the day, the week, the month, quarter, whatever timeliness you'd like to see, the utilization rates of your program, the timeliness of deliverables, the quality. We do a survey for every single job we do. So we know were the end users happy with it or not. And what's come out of that is clients saying, well, could we use this for other services? Could we use it for our own purposes? And the answer is yes. And so now there's more data available. And ultimately what we'll have is benchmarking capabilities. So we can benchmark one bank against peers, obviously anonymously. So when we think about the work that's being done, I think to David's point, if it's been done the same way for years, data and analytics has to be reviewed and think about new ways of doing it, new ways of presenting it. That's probably the biggest issue, is how do you present it in the most meaningful way? And that's where our data strategists and data analysts come in.
Yeah. Okay. And another audience question, which is interesting. How do you measure improvements in operational efficiency numerically? So how do you quantify the improvements that outsourcing can bring? Claire.
Well, that's absolutely where we use the digital client platform, Engage. I mean, everything is recorded, and we can show improvements. Now, if the client already had a tool that they were using and they were measuring productivity, fine, we can do the comparison. But even if they didn't, from day one on, we can show them quality in terms of utilization, timeliness, accuracy, as I mentioned, among other metrics. And then importantly, we're not out with it yet, but we will be, and that is the comparison. So the benchmarking against peers in banking and then peers in other industry. Absolutely essential, because we need to continue to improve. So our numbers have to improve because the clients are going to expect productivity improvements.
Yeah. Now, David, how do you look to measure operational efficiency improvements?
Perhaps we're a little old school in this method, Stephen. Revenue growth, pre-tax margin, and our business leaders have all the capabilities to make those decisions locally where they can manage their margin.
Yeah, so this just comes down to something as basic as that. If the numbers are moving in the right direction, you're doing it well. If they're not, they need to change.
That'll be the ultimate test, right? You can't. You can have all the metrics. Okay, they better come out in pre-tax margin.
Yeah, Paul, how do you look to quantify things?
I think sort of a combination of the methods that we've heard. Certainly operating leverage is something that we look at. And we're also in collaboration with our internal clients, our bankers, talking to them all the time to try to gauge how a certain process or part of a process that we outsourced, how much time did it save? As we think about client data and our internal data analytics, to what extent did providing some leverage and support in that area for a given deal or a project save time versus, to David's point, if we had done it the way we'd been doing it. So through a combination of financial metrics and just talking to folks and finding out the effect on their lives.
Yeah, so it can be sort of more subjective, or even, sort of doing a survey saying, has this actually improved your, ability to do your job, or even your happiness at work?
Exactly.
Taking this task off your hands. I think that is important. Okay, so I want to move on to another topic now, which is, this big debate between in-house and outsourcing. Which functions, core and support, are still best handled internally, and which are best contracted out to external suppliers, especially considering today's technological advances and the new comfort we found with remote working due to coronavirus. Now, I remember a story when I first met the CEO of Barclays, Jess Staley, and he told me that when he started, one of the first things he did was cancel an outsourcing contract with IBM, because he said he'd learned from Jamie Dimon, and that's still the CEO of JP Morgan, even after all this time. He said that running your own back office and technology was a competitive advantage in investment banking. And that's why, and Mr. Staley had obviously taken this to heart and carried it through. But that was a while ago now. That was probably in, I'm aging myself now, 2015, 2016. So is this point of, so as part of the larger topic that we're looking at, is this point of view still prevalent? And which functions in general are best still done in-house and which are best outsourced? And we're going to do a poll, and then I'll go to Claire for her perspective on this. So the poll, which you should see on your screens, is in which of the 4 operational areas listed is your organization most likely to outsource some of the functions? And just pick one of them. The first one is IT. The second is call center customer service. Third is regulatory compliance. And the fourth is business support services such as pitches and presentations, creative design, business information services, and document management. So whilst we give our audience time to vote on that, Claire, could you please give your perspective?
Yes, I think that there will be outsourcing for every company in the world. I think it's as simple as, we'll look at technology. There isn't a company out there beyond Amazon, Microsoft, Google, who would put the money and effort into a cloud-based solution and the security associated with that cloud-based solution. So to me, that's one of the examples of where you look at it and say, do we want to make that investment, or can we rely on the experts? And that's sort of the simplest. Then you get to services like Williams Lea provides to our clients. And I think then it comes down to, do we want to manage that? Do we want to manage all of the, job descriptions, hiring, background screening, training, onboarding, all of the technology associated with that? Or can we outsource it to a company that can do it as good or better? And then it becomes a judgment. And then that's actually why we feel so strongly about the metrics, because you have to continuously prove to the client that they're getting better value. It always comes down to, are we getting better value outsourcing it than we are if we did it ourselves? And then to the point earlier, the bankers want to be bankers. They don't want to do some of the other work that is necessary to support the business. So it's up to the COOs and up to the administrative support people to find the best way to do it, either internally or externally.
Yeah. Okay, well, we've got the results of the poll. They've just come back through. They're a bit more balanced this time. IT was the top with 36% in terms of the operational area most likely to be outsourced. The second was business support services like pitches, presentations, and creative design at 33%. Call center customer service at 25%. And then regulatory compliance was down there at 5%. Obviously, a very important, potentially sensitive area, as we've seen for a number of financial institutions, even in recent weeks. So most people would prefer to keep that in-house. David, what is your view? I mean, what is best? Yeah, what do you see keeping a lot of these support or operational functions in-house as a competitive advantage? And what do you think of is most ripe for outsourcing?
Yeah, well, I think you have to look at everyone, Stephen. And I think with respect to IT, for example, there's probably more to that answer. Okay, and outsourcing IT is really, in our case, it's co-sourcing. Okay, working with partners who can move it to the next generation of technologies faster. Okay, and we see that happening. And then when our business areas are looking to an outsource or co-source relationship, they're seeing the ability to deliver a better product and let their bankers, as Claire says, focus on banking, for example.
Yeah, Paul, what's your perspective? Competitive advantage, or?
I think my perspective is very similar to what we've heard articulated. Our business operations team needs to be in-house because we need to understand our business and what our bankers do in pursuit of client service very intimately. And our job, as it relates to outsourcing, is to ensure that whatever outsourced resource we're engaged with and leveraging their specialized expertise works well for us, for our firm's culture, and ultimately for our clients. So that's kind of our job, is to manage that process to the extent we engage in it. And we do, again, for specialized expertise. Cybersecurity is a good example where we have in-house resources who know our business and know our risks intimately, but then we leverage third parties who have very particular specialized expertise to help us be strong in that area. That's one example. We leverage some outsourced legal resources to help our bankers in the process of negotiating non-disclosure agreements, that sort of thing. Again, we want their expertise and their attention focused on delivering M&A advisory services, and let other experts do what they can do in non-core areas.
Yeah, so it's still, again, like a real sort of hybrid model there, isn't it? There are some areas you want to keep, but also you can recognize outside expertise could be, you're both more advantageous and also cheaper, which leads us on to our next audience question quite nicely. Is outsourcing purely a cost-cutting measure, or can it really be used to enhance and diversify employee roles? And I think I'll go back to David first on this one.
Definitely the latter. We're in growth mode. Okay, we're trying to be efficient and be a modern firm that's leveraging technology. Yeah.
Paul, do you think it can be? I mean, presumably you'll agree as well. It can diversify employee roles rather than just be pure cost cuts.
Of course, yeah. We're in growth mode. We're conscious of the need to be prudent stewards of our resources on the one hand. On the other hand, we are looking to outsource where we can gain leverage from that and enhance our bankers' ability to serve our clients, enhance our ability to collaborate, do so safely. And in many cases, the result can be a more fulfilling employee experience, the insourced folks as well. But we're not necessarily looking at it purely through a cost-cutting lens at all.
Yeah. Okay.
It's Clare, always nice.
Yeah, it's always nice to cost cut as well. Now, Claire, I just want to bring you in on that one as well. I mean, how do you think it can? Do you have any examples or anecdotes about it? You being able to enhance and diversify employee roles.
Yeah, I mean, I can still remember sitting in front of a COO of a firm and talking about our services and talking about the way we price our services, and then moving quickly to the fact that we have centers of excellence around our services and quality checks, as I described earlier, and feedback from the end users and best practices, and talked about how we, do a diligence when we bring on a new client to understand how they do certain things today. We dovetail our best practices with what they do. And, the whole objective is to provide a better service than what they would provide themselves, because this is what this is our strategy. And he just looked at me and he said, I am so glad you said that, because this is not just about cost savings for us. This is about not missing a beat when we change over to your services, and then making sure that we're evolving with you and then, of course I add, and we apply technology and automation to ensure better quality and efficiency. So it is definitely not all about cost cutting. If it is, I think you missed the plot, because it's really more, yes, that's a factor, but it's about allowing the firms to focus on what they do best and giving anything that's not strategic out to somebody else to manage, whether that's IT or administrative support services or other.
Yeah. Okay, we have an audience question specifically for David. When you say you want your people to come back to the office, will that be at a more hybrid capacity or hybrid model?
No, I think it's, hybrid's always going to be there to some extent. Okay. But I think the desire right now is to get back in and really meet people and new people and learn things. Okay. Young people want to meet the people whom they work for, and new colleagues to the firm and associates want to, talk to each other about what they can do to build some synergy. So that, they want to come back in and get going and feel that energy and culture again. And with respect to hybrid, we've worked remote for a long, long time. Okay. That just found new ways and scale this year. So people want to come back.
And you think, and that's as the view of the rank and file as well. They say we want to come back to the office, or is there a bit of pressure to try and, amend it to being sort of one day at home every couple of weeks or something like that?
Yeah. I'm lonely here, Stephen. No,
Me too.
We're safe. People have been really. You can see it when they're back in. They kind of exhale and they go, "This is I feel like I'm connected at home again."
Yeah. Paul, what's your kind of your current plans for this? The return to the office. Are you looking at more hybrid approach, or do you think it'll be largely as we were, say, 15 months ago?
Well, I think firstly, we're following the lead of our parent company, who's been very diligent about following the appropriate guidance. Secondly, like David said, we are eager to get back. I think up and down and across the firm, we're eager to get back and reestablish, and in some cases, establish those bonds that served us so well when we were all working remotely en masse. To his earlier point, our folks travel, our folks are on the road. And so we've developed an ability to work remotely, not necessarily en masse all the time, for a long time now. So I'm sure we will look for ways to leverage some of the silver linings that the COVID experience has taught us, and develop some more flexible approaches. But we're also eager to get back together.
Yeah. And Claire, when we were chatting before the panel started, you said that you'd heard some sort of interesting information from people about just how ready or prepared people are for the return to the office, which will potentially start over the summer and could or could not continue through the autumn, depending on the path of COVID.
Yes. Interesting. We had feedback from a panel similar to this for the legal market. And we asked the question, when are you going back to the office? Are you going back sort of July, September, or January, or you don't know yet? And over 70% of the panelists didn't know yet. So I think there's still a lot of uncertainty. And similarly, and probably equally as important, is the return to office policies. What is the policy? Certain jobs are absolutely remote, certain jobs are absolutely on site, and then certain jobs can be hybrid. And then how is hybrid going to work? Everybody can't be out of the office on Fridays is kind of the thinking. And again, we asked the polling question, and again, over 70% didn't have a policy yet. So I think it's a very much an evolving process. I will say that banking is clearly ahead of the curve in the context of let's get people back into the office. And so we're seeing that from our banking clients. Let's get people back into the office. There's a big issue around the apprenticeship that we've been talking about. It's the senior bankers helping the junior bankers come up to speed. And we have the same thing with our legal clients, the partners helping the associates. So there's a working environment that the office provides for that transfer of knowledge and accelerating people up learning curves that I think is really important and can't be overlooked and probably can't be done exclusively in a remote environment. And regardless, my personal view is even if there is a lot of remote work, there needs to be opportunities to bring people together in an office environment. Maybe it's a quarterly meeting, maybe it's every 2 months, whatever it is, maybe it's a large town hall or smaller work group meetings. People have to be connected to the company or the firm, the bank, because otherwise the culture gets too distributed and you lose what has built most companies into what they are today.
Yeah. No, I agree, Claire. Right, so we've discussed our topic at this webinar at length now, and we have probably gone a bit over already. So it's time for a quick, very quick summing up from each of you. What are the most important parts you would, like our participants and viewers of this webinar to remember? David?
To remember,
put you on the spot.
Look at the growth journeys, and there's so much great stuff happening, with the amount of change that's occurring. Okay, look at it and take the time to talk to partners for new ideas. Okay, the business is changing fast, and we're seeing it, and it's unbelievable how many opportunities we see. So keep exploring.
Operation. And Paul?
I would say that relative to the topic of the day, that we're known for our execution excellence. And so we're focused on providing that execution excellence to our clients, and then internally to our internal clients, so it can proceed from there. What that means doesn't necessarily mean that everything needs to be insourced, or it doesn't necessarily mean that everything needs to be outsourced. What it means is you have to have a core group of business operations people who are an integral part of our one firm philosophy. And because of that, and because they have the knowledge of the business, they can pick their spots where outsourcing makes the most sense to enable, the people to be focused on what they ought to be focused on.
Yeah. And finally, Claire.
I would agree with what I just heard, and thank you so much, Stephen. It was great moderating this panel, great being on this panel for everyone, and to all the participants. Thank you for spending the time with us. I think the key things that we're all evolving, and what David said is so correct. Pay attention. There's a lot of change, and stay tuned to it, because it's affecting us every day. And when it comes to digital transformation, I can't help thinking of Satya Nadell's comment early on in the pandemic. He said, "We've driven 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months because everyone moves so quickly." That pace of change won't be sustainable, but the pace of change has accelerated as a result of the pandemic. So we all have to be very tuned into what's going on in the environment. The digital transformation, as we saw from the beginning, is a key focus of our attendees, as is hiring and retaining talent, and that they're linked. They are absolutely linked, in my view. And the final point I would make is, as we've discussed, outsourcing is about supporting the existing teams. It is about accelerating processes. Is it about enabling the business to focus on its core competency and its strategy? It is not only about cost cutting, and it is about making sure you're getting quality from your provider.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Paul, David, and Claire. I think that was a really good session. Remember, you can rewatch this video or send it to peers and view it on demand for the next 30 days. And hopefully next time we do this, it can be a seminar and it can be in person.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Thank you, Stephen.
So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Stephen.
David, Claire, great seeing you.
Paul, see you, Claire.
Bye.